People ask me how it started, and I tell them, with a tray. Not a proclamation, not a registry correction, not the compact reinstatement officer reading the ORATH seat designation aloud in a corridor, while 12 certified suitors stood in a row and tried to remember whether they had walked past me. A tray of pale grain porridge and 2 cups of something the Kethis Waystation kitchen called coffee, set down across from me at a hauler's rest table in a wind-scoured transit hub on the edge of nowhere, by a man who did not know my name and asked for it instead of assuming. I need to explain Kethis first, so you understand what kind of place this is. Kethis Waystation sits at the junction of 3 secondary trade routes in the arid outer margin of compact space. The wind comes in off the desert flats in the early hours, and makes the station's hull plates tick and groan like a cooling engine. The light is the color of old sand. There is a matching corridor, a long, low hall the compact resettlement office uses when it processes displaced royals under emergency petition statute. And there are rows of benches where the certified suitors sit with their data slates and read the registry entries of the women they have been assigned to consider. There is a communal rest hall for freight haulers and transit workers, separated from the matching corridor by a thin partition wall and the smell of engine sealant. I ate in the hauler's hall every morning for 12 days because the matching corridor made me feel like a ledger entry with legs. The registry listed me as dissolved/seat extinct. That was what a compact suitor saw when he scrolled to my entry. Not my name, not my face. Not the copper thread my grandmother braided into my hair the morning our seat was formally struck from the compact rolls, which I have kept there every day since because I did not know what else to hold on to. He saw a flag, a color code, an administrative status that meant I was legally present but practically invisible. A woman the system acknowledged existed without the system offering any mechanism for someone to choose her. 12 certified suitors passed through Kethis Waystation in those 12 days. I know because the resettlement officer, a tired woman named Perith, had the courtesy to tell me each morning how many were registered for the day's review. Each evening she told me how many had submitted non-selection forms. The numbers matched. I watched them through the partition window sometimes, not out of hope, I want to be honest about that, but because I had run out of other things to do with my eyes. They read their slates, they signed their forms. A few of them glanced up at the partition window, but they were looking through it, not at it. The way people look at a wall when they are thinking about something else. On the morning of the 12th day I sat at the far end of the hauler's rest table with my cup and my grain porridge, and the particular kind of stillness that comes after you have stopped bracing for a disappointment, because the disappointment has become the baseline. I was not sad in the way that demands witness. I was sad in the way that has gone quiet, which is harder to carry and easier to hide. The man set his tray down across from me and said, "Mind if I sit here?" I looked up. He was not what I would have designed if I had been designing anything, which I was not. Somewhere in his early 40s, I would have guessed. Sun-scoured skin, the kind that comes from years of loading bays and transit corridors where the filters run short. Dark hair going gray at the temples, hands that were large and had clearly done most of a life's worth of actual work. He was wearing the vest of a freight hauler, the kind with the cargo company's designation patched over the left chest, and he was looking at me the way a person looks at another person when they are asking a genuine question and waiting for a genuine answer. "No," I said. "Sit." He sat. He ate some of his porridge. He drank some of his coffee. After a moment he said, "You've been at this table every morning since I docked 4 days ago." I figured I'd say something eventually. I told him I was in transit. It was true in all the ways I was willing to explain. He nodded. "Long transit or short?" "I don't know yet," I said, which was the most honest answer I had given anyone in 12 days. He accepted that without pressing it. We ate in silence for a while, which I did not find uncomfortable, which surprised me. The wind came off the desert and ticked against the hull. He refilled his coffee from the station pot and refilled mine without asking, which was either presumptuous or perceptive, and I decided, watching his face, that it was the second one. Then he said, "I'm Saren Dast. Kethis Circuit, 11 years. I told him my name, not my designation, not my registry entry, not the dissolved flag or the seat classification or any of the language the compact used to describe what I was, now that the ORATH seat existed only in the historical record. I told him, "Thessa." He repeated it once, quietly, the way people do when they are storing something carefully. "Thessa. Good, I'll remember it." We talked for the length of the meal. He told me about the Kethis circuit, the 3 routes, the arid flats, the way the Waystation's kitchen had been making the same grain porridge since before he started flying the route, the cargo manifests he had been running for a bulk silicate firm out of the second junction. I told him about the copper thread in my hair, because he noticed it. Not intrusively, just the way an observant person notices a detail, and his eyes ask a question before his mouth does. I told him my grandmother had put it there. I did not tell him why. He said it was a good color. He said it caught the light in a way that was hard not to notice. He said it plainly, as a man states a fact, without any architecture of flattery around it. I had not been told a plain, unornamented true thing about myself in a very long time. He was gone from the rest hall by mid-morning. Freight haulers keep their own hours, driven by manifest deadlines rather than matching corridor schedules. But he was back at the same table for the midday meal, and he set his tray across from me without asking this time, which I took as a comfortable assumption rather than a presumptuous one. We talked about the desert flats. He had walked them once, years ago, on a detour when a landing system went faulty, and he'd had to put down 12 kilometers out. He described the color of the sand at that hour, not gold, he said, more the color of old paper, and the sound the wind made across the flat stones, which he said was less like wind and more like the station hull at night, that same low groan that was almost a voice. I told him I had heard it. He looked at me and said he supposed I had, this being my 12th morning. He knew I had been here that long, which meant he had been paying attention before he sat down. On the morning of the 13th day, Parath came to find me at the rest hall table. Saren was across from me with his coffee. Parath looked at him, then at me, and she set a document on the table, a compact reinstatement petition, approved by 3 compact councilors under emergency statute, restoring the Orath seat to provisional recognition, pending a 5-year review. My name was in the heading, not my designation, not the dissolved flag, my name. She read the seat designation aloud in the corridor, as protocol required, because there were 2 suitors still in the waystation on that day's review schedule who were now required to resubmit their assessments against a corrected registry entry. I thanked her. She left. I sat back down. Saren had not moved. He was looking at his coffee. After a moment he said, "So you're staying longer, or leaving sooner?" I said I did not know yet. He nodded. He refilled his coffee. He refilled mine. I told him then, all of it. The Orath seat, the dissolution, the copper thread, the 12 days of suitors with their data slates reading the dissolved flag, while I sat 20 meters away in the hauler's rest hall, eating grain porridge, and trying not to let the quiet inside me become something I couldn't carry back out. I told him about my grandmother. I told him what the thread meant, that she had braided it in on the last morning of the seat's recognition, to make sure I carried something of it forward even when the compact no longer would. He listened the way a man listens when he is not waiting for his turn to speak. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Thessa Vel Orath, Princess of the restored Orath seat." "Yes," I said. "Good," he said. "I'll remember that too." The wind came off the desert. The hull plates ticked. He finished his coffee and asked if I wanted another cup, and I said yes. And that was how it started. Not with a proclamation, not with a registry correction, not with a suitor finally reading the right flag on a data slate. With a tray, and a man who asked my name before he knew I had one worth asking about.